Morning, everyone. Thanks again to Meet. We'll start with introduction to the panel members. My first invitee for today's session, and again, it's a very interesting session on retail and wholesale payments, which is the key part of transaction banking. So I'll start with lady first. May I please welcome Wafa Al-Ajmi. She is the head of transaction banking and corporate payments. Wafa has been with the bank for a long time, and she has started with the digital transformation at the bank Muscat and innovated on a lot of interesting payments, collections, and B2B payment use cases. So it'll be very interesting to hear your experience. Very warm welcome. Let me invite my second participant, Nisreen from Swift. Nisreen again comes with many years of experience, almost 14 years across markets. Nisreen heads Swift MENA region and responsible for Oman as well. Very, very warm welcome to the panel. My third panelist is a technocrat and somebody who started with a FinTech called Orient Pro and is now with Oracle, Mr. Krishnadas, Nair. Krishnadas has, I think, longest experience among all of us. He has 30 plus years of experience and he has innovated on payments. He was one of the first to implement direct debit in Oman market. So it'll be very, very interesting to hear his experience and how he has seen payments growing. Interestingly, I heard earlier that there's a lot of focus on B2C and there's not enough focus on B2B. This is a B2B payments focused discussion as well. Last but not the least, I would like to invite Rizwan Shaikh. Rizwan is Global Head of Sales for Asia and Middle East for a French group Expleo, which helps banks and financial institutions in their payments journeys. Right? So let's begin and looking forward to have a great discussion. I hope everybody has mics and if you can just ensure the testing of it. So again, very, very big thanks to all of you to come in for the discussion. So we'll start with Nisreen. You've seen global payments growing. You've seen Oman. You've looked at the global trends. So it'll be very interesting to hear your perspective on how do you see Oman progressing towards digital payments.
Sure. Thank you first for the invitation. I'm really delighted to be part of it as a speaker and as audience to hear more from banks here in Oman. Actually, for those who don't know Swift, we are like not an old company, 50 years old, non-profit, cooperative company. We take care of the network connecting banks. And not only banks, we have corporates also on our network. Maybe to start with your question about Oman, actually, it's interesting to see how things are changing here in Oman. First, when I look into the traffic of Oman in the past couple of years, it's increasing in a significant way, which is indication of the business opportunities here in Oman. We're talking about incoming and outgoing, both sides. So more business, more opportunities, it's more open. And maybe on the ground to speak about the experience with the banks on ground and live examples, you see more awareness, more demand, and more openness to what the customers are asking for. Couple of examples. Let's speak about ISO, the standards of the messages. For many people, they think that the ISO is just a change of format of the messages. While I hear a lot of questions, interesting questions from the banks asking what are the benefits that we can get out of the ISO. It's not only changing the format of the message from MT to MX. How can we use the data, the rich data there in the message to get more business? How can we use this data also to decrease our efforts, our manual work on the payments? How can we increase also our efficiency in the processing of payments? So you can hear these questions from the banks asking for more opportunities to reduce costs, to increase efficiency, to enhance the customer experience, to look for more opportunities. Also, actually, I hear a lot of requests from banks for GPI. Those banks who are not subscribed to GPI, they are now more looking into the value out of GPI. Also, it's not only for the bank itself, they are looking for how they can use this service, this tool for the customer, extend this service to the customer. They are asking more how we can integrate this, how we can get this data delivered to the customer to make it more efficient to the customer logging into their mobile app, their online banking, and track their payment without getting back to the bank for more questions. So you see a lot of awareness recently, a lot of requests with regards to customer demand, customer need. We're hearing more what our customers ask for. Maybe the reason is we have more competition now, we have a lot of players, a lot of initiatives in the market. So we are looking more and more for how to use what we have in a better way. Also, one more point I noticed recently is at the corporate side. A lot of banks also are asking how we can get our relationship with the corporate in a better way, secure way to communicate with our corporates through SWIFT network. It's actually more and more request because I assume that we have a lot of corporates now in the market asking for this, and the banks are hearing what the corporates need. So they get back to ask how we can serve our corporate customers in a better way, in a secure way, in an efficient way. So maybe those quick examples I mentioned gives you an insights how things are changing in Oman from, let's say, from SWIFT perspective, and what we hear from customers, whether banks or corporates too. And it's interesting because that's happening in a quick pace, which I guess it's a good indication that we are on the right track. We need to move faster.
Excellent. So 3 key messages, I think. One, a lot of technology coming in from GPI and ISO perspective. Secondly, customer experience is what's driving this, and a very fast-paced growth. Thank you so much for your insight. Let me move to Wafa now. Wafa, the Bank Muscat has always been at the forefront of technology innovation. And it'll be interesting to hear from you, how do you see role of bank like Bank Muscat, which is one of the leaders with almost more than 40% market share, on B2C and B2B payments innovations?
I mean, as you said, being at Bank Muscat a leader in the market, we've always been very dedicated to ensure that we lead the innovation in the financial sector. We understand the role, the responsibility that lays on us because of the customer database that we have and, the size in the market. Also, one of the objectives of the country is to move towards a cashless society. So there is a lot of objective that, along with the government and the central bank, that we're taking ahead in order to move towards that objective. Bank Muscat has been investing a lot when it comes to, how to facilitate that transition. So we see a lot of investment which has happened both for the retail as well as the business side or corporate sides. Of course, when it comes to the retail, I mean, we're all aware about it, the mobile banking, we have the internet, the wallets, we have the different cards option, POS, and soon, the tokenization. And as more technologies comes in, of course, each bank will try to identify new solutions which are going to basically meet the requirements and needs of our population, especially the young tech-savvy ones. They're looking always for something which is going to enable them to do fast, efficient, and on-the-spot sort of transactions. So there have been a lot of movement when it comes to retail, and I think it started also ahead of any digitalization when it comes to the corporate, which started a bit later. There was maybe a few demands or requests from some corporate because they also started, the digitalization process internally a bit late, where they realized the need of upgrading their internal systems, bringing some automations in order to bring some efficiencies in their operations. So that's when the banks, especially Bank Muscat, realized that there is a gap in the market. There is an opportunity which we can basically leverage on, and basis that we started investing heavily to provide the corporate customers, with these solutions to enable them basically with their business growth. So we have invested heavily in what we refer to now as a transaction banking platform, focuses on payment, of course, different types of payments. We also have the trade, so the front end for trade. A corporate can do all their requirements through that. The collection solution as well, the virtual account, the direct debit. As she did mention earlier, that, the direct debit is a new thing which has recently sort of come to Oman. It's not, I mean, the utilization of it in the market is still not there. There's still a bit of fear because the regulation around it as well came a bit late. So people are still waiting to see, about its enforceability. But, the solution, from a solution perspective and digitalization, we have already enabled it through our platform to our customers. There is the liquidity. So really, we have been looking throughout around the full cycle of the working capital to ensure that we are able to empower our businesses from different sizes. So we're looking from small to large, the mega projects, as well as government. Government has also played a very important role to move towards these, the acceptance and utilizations of these projects. A few things that I would like to add here as well, the role that central bank has played to make sure that we have the right environment to be able, to utilize it to develop these kind of solutions, put the framework around it so it brings again, the clarity on the responsibilities, accountabilities of each party, the security systems that need to be played, the integration between different banks. So enabling such infrastructure really did play an important role to this movement. You did mention at the beginning that it's good to hear about the experience from a corporate perspective. When we started the development of digitalization, it was something new to the market, especially to corporates. So, at the beginning, there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of fear. It's money at the end of the day. I want to make sure I see that, where it goes. I see it when I sign the paper. So there was a lot of fear at the beginning when we initially came up with these solutions to the market. But I guess, there was a shift in the mindset. We also had the, younger generation running these businesses coming in who were, keen to sort of implement these solutions. So that has really brought in a lot of change. The other thing was COVID, due to lockdowns, all these, the past area that we went through. So businesses really had to look of ways to continue their business. Branches are no longer there due to different reasons. So digital transaction banking was really a mean to help these corporates to continue with their businesses and move forward as well.
Given the kind of innovation bank has done, and you were one of the first, when you're first, you always have, will you succeed? How will the customer response be? Especially when you went to corporates and launched payments, host to host or B2B, on portal, especially trade on portal.
Yes.
How was the customer's feedback compared to what the fierce bank carried?
I think initially, as I said, the onboarding process were a bit delayed, but the moment they started using it, they've really appreciated the benefit that comes out of it. And they've also started requesting for additional services, so if there were certain features which were not available, that's when we started to, get to engage with them and see, okay, what are the requirements? What is their future looking for so that we can come in and support them as well. So that's where we also keep investing, you've mentioned about the, online banking, the B2B, where now we've launched as well the B2B API. So, we're understanding the changes that those organizations are going through, and we're trying to be, as much as possible, ahead in the market to enable them to sort of, jump on and sort of continue with their requirements as well. So with all these services, with all these digitalization, even there are statistics from CBO which indicate there are reduction in the circulation of cash in the market. So we are moving towards the right direction. They were mentioning that there was almost 12% reduction in the cash circulation in the market, on a yearly basis, and I think that will also improve and increase with, additional services coming at both ends, retail as well as the corporate. Government entities are also now moving towards offering their customers all these different digital options. So that's also another big milestone. I mean, ROP, for example, Ministry of Labor, they no longer accept cash. So that's a big shift. So, and this we'll see coming through to other entities as well. So overall, I think we are moving towards the right direction. Resistance will be there whenever you come with a new solution. Right now, direct debit, a bit of hesitance, for example. It's not like how we used to have it with online, our payment solutions. If we talk about the numbers now, from where we were, currently, as of end of September, we're processing more than 4 million transactions on the platform, worth of almost around 8 billion. This is as of September. So we have seen the increase. So that really is an indication that customers are looking for such solution. They're looking for the right partner, a partner that they can trust, who ensures, the security of their funds, of their data, the seamless processing of the transaction in there. And once they see that, it's evidence to them, they will come on board.
Excellent. So this must be music to ear of Krishnadas and Rizwan, who kind of all the time convince banks for moving down this path. And great to see the kind of response to transaction banking payments and other services. Very well done, I would say. Rizwan, moving to you, you have a very interesting role. As a facilitator, you come up with ideas to the bank, convince bank to move down, innovations. So when you look at from your perspective, what do you see as the potential benefits from business and consumer, both segments, if payments in Oman are moving with interoperability and standardization, with all the good efforts of SWIFT and banking community?
Yeah, so I think that thanks so much, Wafa. So I think my question in a way was answered by Nisreen. So I have a very easy job to do right now, just to kind of voice her again. And maybe Wafa on the other side has actually given an example of how they have led the pack, in terms of doing business together with the other entities and customers together. So interoperability and standardization, two very important aspects. It's like this, like when you go to a doctor, the doctor asks you for a CT scan, and you have a scan in one format, but you want to take a second opinion, you go to another doctor and he can't read it. So whatever you did first was wrong, so you have to redo the CT scan again. So that's interoperability, right? And which means the other thing is the standardization is not there. So which means it's not in a format which everybody can read. So that's the parallel I want to draw with this kind of a situation where SWIFT is a good example, actually, ISO 20022. You have a classic case study of a UK bank which is implementing faster payments, imbibing SWIFT 20022, and an Indian bank which is ICICI, also imbibing ISO 20022. Both of these banks are now doing transactions seamlessly. So net-net, if these two standards are the interoperability and the standardization is not there, your entire payment landscape becomes fragmented, which means it leads to inefficiency, which means there is a lack of speed of transaction, which means your end customer is not going to be happy because the payment is lagging somewhere in between in the journey itself. So end of the day, to answer your question in a simple answer, like, what are the benefits? Of course, ease of transaction, the flexibility, and the choice of moving towards real-time payments becomes a reality. The kind of cost efficiencies you will have if the payment moves seamlessly is unquestionable as well. So essentially, like, we've helped our customers in the same way to identify areas or bottlenecks in a particular transaction journey and try to solve those problems. In the earlier panel, we were discussing about problems not being there. But the question is, do you know where the problems are? Right? So it takes one wrong transaction, one fraud, one wrong customer debit or credit to identify the problem. So can't we be proactive rather than reactive in that case? So I think that probably is the answer to your question, Chetan, altogether.
Very, very interesting insights from Rizwan, from supplier and also from business and consumer perspective. Krishnadas, next question of mine is to you. You are one of the most experienced payment professional in the industry with 30 years. You've spent almost 15 plus years in Oman, enabling payments, early ECC, direct debits, and so on and so forth. So if you have to look forward and say next 5 to 10 years in Oman and tell us what would be the disruptive technologies, right, which will come to Oman from payment perspective, and what should banks do to take part in this transformation?
Thanks, Chetan. Thanks, Cedar. Welcome, panel members, and welcome, learner audience. So rightly mentioned by you, my exposure was across wholesale banking, corporate banking, transaction banking in GCC and Oman in perspective. I would like to focus my thoughts, sharing my thoughts more on Oman as a country and how the payment space is evolving in this market. So let's look at some macroeconomic numbers from the country perspective to bring in the context. Oman has 5 million population. 69% of the population is under the age of, 63% of population under the age of 29. Now this brings a very high demographic dividend to the economic growth of the country, because we all know that technology is an integral part of economic growth. And today's youth is technology savvy. There is 100% mobile adoption in the country. 95% is the penetration of internet users. Amazing numbers. Oman is the largest growing economy in the Middle East. If you look at, it's growing at 4.2% across. The average GCC percentage growth of 3.2%. The GDP of Oman, as far as Q1 2023, has shown a growth of 4.6%. Now, if you look at the macroeconomic stage of where the country is in, it's a golden era. Let's also look at how the banking industry is performing. The financial inclusion coverage of the country is a staggering 84%. That's amazing figures. That means 84% of the population has access to financial services. And if you look at the online banking penetration is around 32%. Debit card penetration is around 54%. Credit card is around 27%. And if you look at the top 8 banks' combined asset size of Oman, it has grown by 4.7%, a staggering 40 billion Omani riyal. So the stage is set well, for the Oman industry, the banking industry and the country to grow. But the challenges are ahead, further ahead. Let's look at how the market drives these challenges. The business sentiments are changing. There are complex market structures evolving in the economy. No more bank is a single source of credit intermediation like it was before. Liquidity is no more one to many. It is many to many, and it's highly democratic. There are non-financial factors like ESG, coming as key business factors into decision making. Now, Central Bank of Oman has actually sensed what is required to be established for the growth of the banking industry for the next years. Aligned to the Oman 2040 vision, we all know that Central Bank launched the open banking API infrastructure in 2019, they had announced. Followed with that, they have launched what you call as the FinTech regulatory sandbox last year, which calls for a larger participation of FinTech startups to come forward and create competition in the space of financial industry in Oman. Now, what are the focus? The focus is on structured investment into cloud computing, in customer onboarding, eKYC, P2P payments, and a lot. Now, what this called for is a stringent competition from the FinTech for the banking ecosystem. Now, we recently saw that Central Bank has also launched 24/7 RTGS. This is going to be the game changer in the industry. The reason why I'm saying because this opens up new avenues of new banking payments trails in terms of cross-border payments, RTP, faster payments. Now, when your RTGS is getting into a 24/7 mechanism, this throws up avenues for integrating to the regional clearance systems like AFAC as well as Buna payment systems. Now, if you look at all these payment systems use standard payments file format ISO 2022, which has been referred here by the panel members. More than that, all these payment systems use common protocols, standard operating procedures related to SWIFT integrations. So this calls for a lot of innovations within the banking ecosystem to revamp, rethink how they were driving the technology investments and decisions related to wholesale and retail payments. Now, beyond payment space, if you look at the other trending solution space is about B2B. Typically, from a solution vendor point of view, we call it EIPP or e-invoice presentment and payments. The classic example of B2B growth is KSA, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. If you see that market, you cannot compare Saudi Arabia market with Oman. But the success factor by which they are driving B2B payments is tremendous. The Sadar payments or Sama payments. Originally, Sama was the single custodian to Sama payments. And then came a lot of banks focusing on B2B payments because they couldn't actually serve the real purpose. Today, Sama has brought in the FinTech ecosystem into this space, opening up this sector, and you have at least 4 or 5 FinTechs already coming as account aggregators for B2B payments in that market. I mean, B2B payments is a big space for Oman as well. Now, if you look at, it is not only restricted to the kind of transaction-based charges that the banks can actually evolve out of it, but there are large business, factors that is beyond the scope. For example, if you're looking for to funding those payables in a B2B concept, it calls for working capital financing. And that throws up avenues for a lot of interest income. And if you expand it further, it goes beyond what you call as the channel financing. When you integrate the payees as well as the payers on an ecosystem, it throws open the avenues of what you call as a structured supply chain finance mechanism. And these are something still not explored in detail in the Oman banking concept. Another one is, of course, the direct debits, which Chetan did mention. We all know that Central Bank of Oman launched officially direct debit in 2017-18, they announced. but there were a lot of restrictions related to legalization of the mandate, which of course they have found a solution. I think that is brought under the NPS, and where the central bank has more control on legalizing the mandate registrations and authentication as a part of the direct debit process. Now this brings in a big opportunity for banks to explore, especially in case of low frequency, multiple payments that will happen in the industry. I would like to focus a bit on BNPL. There is a concept that BNPL is more associated with FinTech operators. I have a classic examples I've seen in UAE where a coexistence on a BNPL platform with a FinTech as well as a bank, and bank themselves drive this BNPL as a part of their major business solutions model. Then comes the innovations around virtual accounts management as well as liquidity. The previous panel members spoke about it. This is still underexplored in a market like Oman. A combination of virtual accounts management as well as liquidity is going to open up avenues to the corporate treasurers, the way how they can have a visibility of their liquidity across multiple channels and the access to the liquidity in a real-time manner. You actually create the liquidity structures with regard to the corporate in terms of the sweeping and pooling requirements, and you build your VAM structures on that, the virtual account structures on that. Apart from visibility of funds, the realization of funds is also at the door. Why I'm saying this? Because making the corporate treasurer happy in terms of providing liquidity across his networks is going to be the success story of bankers in the region. I mean, there are a lot more in that. Probably trade, of course, is something, there are a lot of innovations, especially on the document trade. Of course, that's not a subject matter of discussion here. So,
quite a positive view. Thanks so much for the perspective.
Yeah.
Wafa, when we look at cross-border payments, which is one of the bigger B2B payments outside Oman, as well as remittances, which is one of the very large volume. When you look at interoperability and other challenges, what do you see are some of the pain points from a bank customer perspective?
Okay. Just to give a bit of a sort of a brief background, I mean, Oman has always been on the SWIFT network when it comes to the cross-border remittance. And that has been moving well so far. We've also seen enhancements from SWIFT where, the first issues that we used to have earlier is that customers are not able to know the status of their transactions. Where did it reach? Why did it not reach to the beneficiaries? So with the enhancement which SWIFT has done through the GPI, these kind of solutions or inquiries have drastically reduced. The fees involved in it as well in these kind of transactions as well. With these kind of services now, we see these kind of inquiries from a customer has reduced. At Bank Muscat currently we are using this service from SWIFT, and we also have it in our plan to sort of enable it on the channels basically, so that our customers can have this data immediately and they have access to know exactly where are their funds, the status and so on. When we talk about the readiness, I think for the customer, they always look at options, be it a B2B or a B2C as well. So, they want to see, they want a bank who's able to connect them with different payment networks and, in order to achieve a faster, a much quicker and seamless, of course, journey. And I think central bank has been playing an important role in that, as we mentioned earlier, with the upgrade of the RTGS. Now they're enabling as well the integration with AFAQ, so that will also enable, the B2B business to be able to do their remittance, hopefully once it's live, in a sort of in a real-time basis. The Buna is also another option. There's also an exploration to see through the central bank to see if we can connect with the, for example, the national payment of India, because, due to the large volumes that goes between the two countries. So I think, as I said earlier, the central bank is working. They understand the demand that's coming from the businesses, from the retail, and the importance that Oman as well get aligned with the international market. We have to be, that's our aim for the 2040 as well, to be among the top countries that enable a digital economy, and remittance, of course, cross-border is one of the main aspects of it. When it comes to the pain point, I think, so from a speed angle, from processing the transaction at the customer end, that happens quite quickly, through the platform that has been provided. But I guess the main issue comes now is about the compliance screening that happens, because of the different AML regulations, whether locally, internationally, all these KYC, in which a lot of them, especially at the recipient's bank, happens on a manual basis. So that's one of the main challenges that I think, because of such screenings, delays happens. So, a lot of awareness as well is happening right now to our customers that, please make sure you have the data available, the invoices, all the required information, because again, cross-border means you deal with different jurisdictions, different regulations. It keeps updating now regularly because of the political situation as well, so things just keep changing. So, the ability now, so we understand that as a challenge, customers as well, especially businesses, understand it. And what we try to do is try to sort of, smooth that process as much as possible, be aware about the different regulations that are there in order to support them, and, try to sort of make it as smooth as possible when it comes to cross-border payments.
So clear set of challenge and a very, very open acceptance and resolution, which is very wonderful. Rizwan, when you look at these in B2C sector, especially on retail, does it come out one innovation or collaboration which kind of in Oman can make a lot of sense?
Definitely yes, Chetan. So I think one of the most impressive, if you really look at the trends today, if you look at the GCC payments industry per se, how much of payments is flowing within the GCC? It's in trillions, USD. And the amount of transactions that is flowing within the GCC alone, it's a multi-billion kind of a transactions that are happening on an annual basis, right? So there's a lot of potential for payments altogether. So now coming to the part, Central Bank has already put all the guidelines, all the frameworks there. It's all there, right? And it's a matter of switching them on for banks to peruse or the customers to peruse as well. So 2-3 things very key. P2P is one of them, which I think each customer would be delighted to make a payment through their mobile wallets, for example. So I can see Bank Dhofar has initiated a transaction with National Gas of Oman where they are allowing mobile payments, which is an Android-based software. And of course, the next part is the POS itself. The second thing which I can see in Oman that can come up very nicely is BNPL, we know, is definitely acceptable, but what can really work here is the POS financing itself. Because that is, I believe, like, it gives you a lot of ability to make the payment subsequently, flexibly, maybe after some period of time when you don't have the funds, but you need the thing immediately as such. Another thing which I see in Oman, we all talked about wholesale payments, B2B. But in reality, it is B2B2C, right? Because end of the day, even if two companies are transacting, they're always selling it to some end customer. So you need to look at the entire cycle, not only part of it. So end of the day, the trend that I see out here is like, I think Oman needs to definitely catch up in terms of, and they have the advantage, they're in the right place, right time right now to change their culture, change their mindset and go into digital first, go into customer first and actually catch the bus but overtake the others. You are in the right place at the right time. That's how I feel they're structured at this point in time.
So quite interesting. B2B2C, I think, a different perspective altogether. Nisreen, you heard the challenge on cross-border payments and SWIFT as an association has an accountability towards the cross-border payments as one of the main association. So again, what does SWIFT's perspective to ensure payments are secure, real-time or near real-time, to ensure the bank do not face this time to pay kind of challenges?
Well, Chetan, as you mentioned that we're at SWIFT, we're playing this role. We are connecting the world together, and as many initiatives we heard about in this panel and the previous panels, Buna, Afaq, and many domestic also initiatives like instant payments operators in each country, and how the Central Bank of Oman, they moved the RTGS to 24/7. We are looking into all these initiatives, all these market players, and connecting them to the cross-border railway. Maybe as we mentioned, ISO, how we started this, it's not only to change the format, it's to standardize the format of messages. So when you are talking to multiple players in the market, each one is speaking his own language, his unique language, it would be difficult for the banks to integrate their systems, to speak to each platform in a different language, and to connect this also whether domestic or cross-border. It will be a headache for the banks, and with the headache, you know, there's more cost, more risk, more consequences of this. So we are playing this role of this standardization and speaking to all those initiatives to speak the same language, so we connect the cross-border along with the domestic to be a real-time instant payment. When we started with the GPI back in 2017, it was a different thing. Maybe now when we talk about GPI, it's normal. Actually, it's very normal to hear GPI. And when we look into the speed of payments there, almost 50% of the payments on GPI are happening in minutes, while everyone knows that the SLA is 24 hours, but it's happening in minutes. Yeah, and more than 95% of the payments are happening within the 24 hours. When you speak about GPI and you talk about large payments, we also looked into the other part of the payments with the low value payments. You know that customers' interests or needs are different. When you speak to a corporate customer, it's different than a retail customer. The retail customer, they are looking more into less cost, more instant and speed, and to, of course, to track the payment and to predict the payment itself. That's why we got with the Swift Go initiative to have the payments for low value payments and serve the community in that part. Also, we have the SLA as 4 hours, but we see also payments are happening in minutes, actually. This is the part of, let's say, the speed element that we are looking into. There is another element we are taking care of, which is the friction of payments. When we look globally into the friction of payments and the cost of that, it's billions every year. And most of the friction is happening due to errors in data of the beneficiary customer, whether account or details. Our CSP program, all those initiatives that we are equipping the banks with the tools and the services to help them make their environment secure, make their payments journey secure for the bank and for the customer.
So we are out of time, so I'll just ask a couple of audience questions. So go ahead.
My question is to Ms. Nisreen. You spoke about friction. I want to understand what Swift is doing to handle the RFIs. That remains one of the friction areas in the payments. It takes time to respond to the RFIs, which happens whether cross-border payments, P2P or P2B payments. Is there anything Swift is doing to handle? And second part of my question is to Mr. Krishnadas, is that what kind of technologies you are seeing can be adopted to improve customer experience in terms of handling RFI, which is traditionally a manual process?
Well, maybe both questions can be answered in the same point. When we talk about friction, we are talking about the beneficiary details, the beneficiary, whether the account, the name, sometimes the purpose code of the payment, all those details that are a major factor in the processing of the payment. So what we are doing through API technology. We are giving the banks the ability to speak to each other as a sender and as a receiver. For the sender to speak to the receiver and pre-validate the beneficiary details before sending the payment. So you will have, within seconds, milliseconds, a response from the other bank that, yes, the beneficiary account is correct and is able to receive a payment. So when you are as a sender, as a customer, or as a bank, you feel secure, comfort that when you are sending this payment, you will not receive rejection because of wrong beneficiary account number, or this account is closed, invalid, it's not there. So we know that such, let's say, sensitive element there in the payment, it should be instant. That's why it's based on APIs, and it works in both ways, as a sender and as a receiver, because you are, as a receiver, you will respond to that bank, you validate, you say, yes, this account is correct and eligible to receive a payment. So both ways, both parties in the payment are winning, because you are, as a sender, you will not get rejected payment, and as a receiver, you will not receive wrong payment and you need to work on it manually or return it. So this is how we look into the friction happening in cross-border payment and how we are helping the banks to reduce it, let's say.
Krishnadas, quick 10 seconds perspective on technology.
Oh, great. So answering to your question around customer experience, a wider subject, but I would like to restrict it more from the corporate banking, wholesale banking perspective. First and foremost, if you look at the high degree of customer experience lies with giving a customer a 360-degree view of his customer account relationship across various sectors. And that is where I brought in the point, if a corporate treasurer is easily accessing his liquidity updates, his funds requirements on a click of a finger, that is what really the customer experience matters in terms of corporate wholesale banking. Yeah. But how do we provide? Multiple integrated channels front to back using AI, NLP. And of course, we have various methods of payment authorization that has come up in the market. When you talk about payments per se, face-based payments recognitions, voice-based payments, authentications. We have AI components which is used for authentication, tokenizations. The new concept of Gen AI has come up in terms of content creations without any kind of manual interventions. So to talk about, there are a lot of innovations that come up in this industry to improve customer experience. But Oracle, being one of the forefront of technology providers, have really focused on investing into give end-to-end customer experience across their corporate banking suite, front to back, across cash and trade.
Yeah. So thank you so much, panelists, for amazing insights, and I'm sure each one of you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for wonderful discussion.